As you know, we finally have justice for Pauline. District Attorney General Mark Davidson, after reviewing the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's extensive case file, announced that if Sheriff Buford Pusser were alive today, he would be indicted for her murder. This far-reaching investigation was sparked by the recovery of a .30 caliber carbine, reported to Mike as the possible weapon used in Pauline's death. Today, Mike begins by revisiting Buford Pusser's own statement to the TBI investigators about the ambush. His account reads less like fact and more like a crime novel, one that stretches far beyond logic. Here's Mike to explain.
Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. Today we've got an exciting program because we are going to take a look at the statement that Buford Pusser gave to TBI agents shortly after the alleged ambush. Now, this is going to be one of the first times that he's speaking with them, and for instance, it's full of great stuff. He says he got home between 4:30 and 5 the morning of the ambush. Buford said he'd been home for about 10 minutes when the phone rang, and it was someone that he didn't know. However, this individual says, "This is your friend. If you will come down the State Line Road, you'll find something big and important." Now, Buford told him that he was tired, he just got home, and asked if he would wait till the next day. And this individual told him, no, it'll be gone by then. And, Buford kept insisting that he would come down the next day, and the guy got angry and hung the phone up, slammed it down. Well, Buford decided to go out there, and of course, Pauline would decide to go with him. And so this is when their journey started. Now get this, in a statement, and keeping in mind that the roadway between Adamsville and Highway 57 was in pretty rough shape back in those days, nothing like it is now. And he claimed that he was driving 80 to 90 miles an hour down that roadway to get to this spot that morning. Now, I don't know. I've been on that road even recently, and I would hate to try to drive 90 miles an hour down through there. But, Buford was an expert driver. He gets down there, and instead of going towards State Line Road for some reason, he went down New Hope Road. And ironically, the ambush party was sitting there waiting for him. Of course, he didn't see it. He said that he was driving about 50 miles an hour when he passed the church. And he says that it was just almost dawn. The sun was just about to break. But he still had to have his headlights on to be able to see. So that tells you that if Buford was saying that it was dark, then it was dark. Now, beyond that, he says that the car pulled up alongside of him. He didn't even know it was there until the car was pulled right up beside him on the bridge. Now, that's a pretty narrow bridge for that to happen. But he says they pulled up right up beside him. Gunfire broke out. A few shots were fired. And he just hit the gas, sped off. And he thought he had lost them. I don't know where he thought they would go. There wasn't any place that they could go to. However, he thought he had lost them, and he said that Pauline was having a very difficult time breathing, gasping for air, gurgling. Now, Buford realized that Pauline had been wounded back at the first ambush site, as she was having blood coming down the side of her head into her face, and that her nose was bleeding. So he stated that she is alive, that she's been wounded, and how that she is kind of drawing her feet and her arms up kind of in a ball. And so at that point, he decided to pull over to the side of the road and check on her. Finally, when they got about 2 miles on down the road where the second ambush site is, he thought that she was really choking badly. He thought he would pull over, and he did so on the right side of the road. Now, you have to keep in mind this was a pretty narrow road back then, and cars were generally a lot wider. You know, just the way the cars were back in the 60s. They were cruising vessels back then. At any rate, he said that he'd started to get out of the car. He had one foot out on the ground, one still in the car, and this Cadillac pulled right up beside him. Only it's all the way over on the opposite side of the road, on the left side, going the same direction as he was, of course. And he said there was enough room in between the two vehicles that if a car had been coming down through there, it could have passed between them. You've seen the pictures of the road, the freshly bladed ditches that were there on each side. But yet he says that, you know, he pulled over on the side and the other car did the same. And there was all this space in between them. I don't get that. Now, this is where things in the report, as if they haven't been a little bit questionable at this point, began to get really bizarre. And by that I mean, he says that at the second ambush site, just as soon as they pulled up, stopped on the opposite side of the road, that the shooter opened fire, and that he was facing, looking at Pauline when she was shot in the forehead. And then he said that he pulled her toward him. He fell down to try and provide some cover for her, apparently, and that as he was doing so, he got shot, and said he fell to the seat. Now, if you notice that in previous publications, he has said that he was knocked to the floorboard. So that's kind of like I pointed out in the videos, there wasn't much space between the seat and the front console. But now, of course, he's saying he did fall into the onto the seat, not down to the floorboard. His story just changes. It's like he's making up something new every time he speaks. Now, this is what really gets me. He said there after a few minutes, he raised himself up and he noticed that the car was still right there beside him. Now, in this version of his story, he says that the engine on their vehicle, they've shut it off. And he lunges over at the shooter, who is having trouble because the gun has apparently jammed, according to this version of the story, and that the shooter is trying to use the bolt on the M1. I don't know if that's what you would really want to call it, a bolt, but that's the closest thing I can think of offhand. And he's trying to eject apparently a casing to get a fresh round in from where it had jammed. And you said that's when he grabbed a hold of the barrel of the rifle and tried to take it away. The driver starts the car, pulls away, and that's when he let go of the gun. All of this is so strange compared to what he would tell the media, and you get to trying to compare all these little things. You know, he's driving 80 to 90 miles an hour down a road where you would not have been able to do that. He goes past the church, and just in 7/10 of a mile, this car manages to catch up with him without the use of its headlights. This unknown caller says this is a friend and tells him about all this. Doesn't identify himself, and the man even said that he didn't want to talk about it on the phone because he was afraid someone might be listening. Now, I think most people would say, this sounds a little fishy, and I am absolutely not going to take my wife out there, but yet he did. And he was also told to go down State Line Road, which is south of New Hope. So why did he go down New Hope Road? Lots of questions here. Buford's story isn't adding up. But better yet, at this point, he says that he started to move the car forward and he was headed down to the state line. He gets there, he looks both directions, doesn't see this Cadillac. And in this statement, he also says that there were three people in the car and he thought that it was W.O. Hathcock in the back seat of that Cadillac. And incidentally, he also described the car as one that W.O. Hathcock owned. The only thing that went wrong here is that W.O. had sold that car a couple of weeks before, I understand, if I'm not mistaken, to a dealership in Tupelo. So W.O. hadn't had that car anymore, if that part of the story is correct. Now, he says while he's sitting there at 45, he can't see the Cadillac anywhere in sight, so he turns to the right and heads towards Selmer. He gets down to about a mile and doesn't see anything, so he turns around and heads back toward the state line. Now, you have to understand, he is bleeding, and his wife is laying there in the seat dead, and he tells agents that he wanted to kill this much. So when he gets down toward the state line, he stops at the Shamrock, doesn't see a Cadillac there. He looks over at the Plantation Club and he says he sees three cars over there, but none of them are a Cadillac. So he heads down State Line Road. Now, something I might point out that I find really bizarre is that not only is he bleeding and his wife is in the car and she is dead, but he is looking for this Cadillac of all things. And it should be noted that the Plantation Club had closed before he was even elected sheriff in 1964. Here it is 3 years later, and there's three cars over there. What are they doing over there at that point in time? And whose cars are they? We don't know. Now I just wanted to stop for a moment and remind everyone of something. Now, he said that he thought it might be W.O. Hathcock in the back of that Cadillac. And he describes a Cadillac that matches one that W.O. has. And then what does he do? He ends up going and checking out the Plantation Club that W.O. owned. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but it's one of those signs that I picked up on, because you think back to the January 67 time when Buford was stopped a speeding vehicle, and he was shot 4 times, according to him, by parties unknown. He said he couldn't identify anybody in the car. But yet at the same time, that very night, he took control of the search for the vehicle while he was still in the hospital. And amazingly, for some reason, he was looking for Towhead White. Now, I point this out because it seems like he had a method of doing things. He would be, in his statements, pointing out to the person that he wanted authorities to go after. In the shooting in January of 67, he wanted them to find Towhead and get him back into prison. And in this case, it seems like that he's doing everything he can to point fingers at W.O. Hathcock. And what has W.O. Hathcock done in that 3 years? From the time that Buford was elected sheriff until 1967, August. Don't know of anything where W.O. was even involved in anything down there. But you have to think about all those little details like that. It's strange. Mark Baylor, that used to work at the the Daily Corinthian, interviewed W.R. Morris one time, And Morris told him Buford wanted to be famous. And, made some comment to the degree that, well, he became famous. And now you look at it, and like I've said in previous videos, it seemed like Buford was always working on building his legend from the very time that he got into office until he left. He was trying to build a legend for himself. And certainly Pauline's death contributed heavily into that, because that was the basis of the book, The 12th of August by W.R. Morris, a lot of songs by Eddie Bond, and of course then there was the entire Walking Tall movie franchise and short-lived TV show. And a lot of that had to do with Pauline and not wanting him to be a sheriff, and him more or less insisting on it, making up the most incorrect version of his career in law enforcement in that movie. So Pauline was the one that paid the price there, like I've said before, and yet he's the one that gets famous. So keep that in the back of your mind as we go through these things. At any rate, he goes down State Line Road, gets down, heads toward Acton, then ends back up on New Hope Road, goes back down it, gets on 45, and then heads into Selmer, where they find him at Alan McCoy's store. Now, that is really a bizarre story for me to have to swallow. And that is just one of the things that this file is going to show. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant right now, because let me say that there's a number of naysayers. It seems like they've multiplied since this report came out. And let me point out that these naysayers, what they wanted at first was just some proof that Buford had done this. So they do this exhaustive investigation. And now they have a possible firearm. They've got, I assume, some ballistics information. They've got blood spatter evidence. They have such things as, new witness statements. They've got photographic evidence that they can take a look at. And they've got Pauline's autopsy report. And it all points to the fact that Buford is lying about all this. Now, people are always looking at me saying, I want to see proof. I want to see proof. Well, now you got the proof, and it's about to come out so that you can read it just as I am. Look at it for yourself. And now some of you, even before you see that, are saying, I want to see documentation. I need to have it, where I can see it. And, well, folks, give them a chance. There's a lot of work that goes into this sort of thing. And for you guys to be sitting out there saying that it's not true, the TBI did a lousy job of investigation and so on and so forth. Well, Buford did a lousy job of covering up the murder of his wife, is what I would suggest. And here you guys are doubling down on all this stuff. I don't get it. And a lot of the people from over around Adamsville are some of the worst to make some of these statements. And I'll tell you what, I'll go you one further. I think it's quite something when a city administration, and I don't even care who's in charge, allows that the town has two iconic heroes to them, Buford Pusser and Ray Blanton. There are monuments and signs up on both ends of town on 64 that let you know that these two famous men are from their town. And are you serious? Those are the two people that you hold up as examples of Adamsville? I got news for a lot of people over there. There are a number of you that think that Adamsville is a whole lot better than either Buford Pusser or Ray Blanton. So, and here you're doubling down on it. It's amazing to me. But I've had a long, hard week. I've had to talk with a lot of people. I've had, at this point, probably over 700 emails and messages. I don't know. And I can't keep up with anything. So I'm just kind of throwing this video together tonight just to try and let you know how bad it looks for Buford. And this is 4 pages of a 1,000+ page statement that is coming out. And so if you want to keep supporting Buford the way you are, that's your business. I really don't care. But I am not going to keep answering the naysayers out here, because what I want to see from you guys is I want to see some proof that Buford didn't do it. I want to see some proof from you folks, some documentation, just like you demand of me. Now you're getting it and you're still not happy. So I'm going to expect the same thing, and if you can't deliver it, I'm not even going to bother to make any comments, because you're a waste of my time, you're a waste of other readers' time. Unless you've got something to show that Buford didn't do this, the game is over, guys. That's all I'm trying to say. So with that, I'll get off here, and I don't think we're going to have a video on Saturday, because I've got a very busy week between now and and Sunday, and I hope to try and get caught up so I can get back on my usual schedule. I would encourage everybody to go over and visit my Facebook page, see it. There are lots of photographs in the photo section. Got all sorts of documents. Nothing yet really about the investigation, but there's lots of photographs of Buford, Pauline, other characters, newspaper reports. And when you read it through it for yourself, you'll just see how Buford's story about all this makes no sense. But yet, naysayers, they believe in Buford. So, having said that, like I say, I'm going to get out of here and try to get a little rest tonight, because I've got a big day tomorrow, and Friday and Saturday. So, until next week, just remember, truth has no agenda. And thanks for watching.